everybody, I'm Rainbow and welcome to Dimensional Walking. And today we're going to be talking about something that has actually scared me since I was a child. And I thought I would just go ahead and kind of look into it and find out as much as I possibly could. Because I think that the best thing to do if something scares you is to actually find out information about it, and knowledge is power. So I decided to go ahead and look up information, and actually I just got done reading a book on demonic possession. Now, I grew up in the period where The Exorcist came out, and I actually was 13 when the movie came out, or 12 or 13, and I was very concerned about the fact that possibly, the age had anything to do with it or whatever. I talked to my mom about it. She was scared out of her wits. I knew so many people who were so afraid of that movie, and I also knew there were priests who were very disturbed by it. So that's where I got this idea that demonic possession is something to be very, very afraid of. And so I thought, nah, because then that ends up taking power away from you. And I wanted to understand it a little bit better, but I wanted to understand it from the point of view of somebody who actually has done it for a long time. And so I got a book. Well, let me backtrack. Michael and I love going to a specific area here in Oregon called Mount Angel. And Mount Angel actually has a Roman Catholic abbey, a monastery where a lot of monks come in and they train, and I guess they go to school there. And it's actually very beautiful. The information that I have on it is Mount Angel Abbey is a Roman Catholic monastery of Benedictine monks in the Northwest United States, located in St. Benedictine, Oregon. Even though maybe that's the location of the monastery, but it's actually in Mount Angel, northeast of Salem. It was established 140 years ago in 1882 from Engelberg Abbey, Switzerland. The abbey, located on the top of Mount Angel, a 485-foot huge butte, has its own post office separate from the city of Mount Angel. As of 2021, the abbey is home to approximately 51 monks. So what I ended up doing is they have a wonderful library there. And so Michael and I went on one of my days off, and we went to the library, and it's amazing because it's circular, it's round, and then they have some areas where they have really old books, and you have to get permission to go in and see them, and it's just really, really amazing. And so I'm now, I paid a library fee, so I have access to the library for a year. And I ended up getting a book that actually is one of the few that they have about exorcisms. And the book is this one right here. Now, and not in any way am I advocating you guys go check this book out. I did find it very interesting, but I just wanted you to see where I got my information from. And it's this book right here, and the author is Father Gabriele Amorthwho, and I could be saying his name wrong, but anyway, it's Amorthh. And the title is An Exorcist Tells His Story. And I just got done reading it, and I took down a lot of notes for you guys, and so I thought what I would do, and I think it's really important, is to give you information so you guys can understand kind of what this is, so that we're not thinking about things according to possession like the movie The Exorcist. I think it's important to look at this from the point of view of somebody who has done thousands of exorcisms, and also somebody who was mentored by someone who did thousands and who did the worst of the worst. So I just took down as many notes as possible so I could give you guys the most up-to-date, well, actually, I don't know up to date, but I think to this very day, this is how they actually do exorcisms. And the interesting thing about this is that there were a lot of caveats for me, because it ended up not being something as scary as what I had first thought. It actually was, oh, okay, this makes sense, or okay, that's interesting kind of thing. So I'm going to read down my notes, and go down the list of what I have. And I know every once in a while I'll maybe put in my opinion on different things, but I think this is really important information, especially around today's times. Michael and I have talked a lot about why is it so crazy? And it is crazy. It's kind of crazy out there. So what I thought I would do is just, I'm not saying this is the reason why it's crazy, but it could possibly be some of it. So here we go on my notes. So the one thing that they do, which I think is very smart and very important, is whenever somebody comes in and they say, I think I'm possessed, I think I have a problem, they will call the priest. And we're talking specifically here about Catholic priests. I'm not talking about another religion. I just kind of, because the monastery happens to be Roman Catholic, this is the one that I went to. But what they do is when they have a parishioner who comes in and says, I think I have a problem, what they bring in a psychologist, because what they want to do is understand that if this is really a possession, or if this is somebody who has mental problems or has some other physical ailments that could be causing them to see things, or possibly maybe prescriptions that they're on. They try to look at this from the viewpoint of, let's not go right into thinking this is what this is. Let's go down a list of what this possibly could be, which I think is very interesting, and I didn't really know they did that. Maybe you did. I didn't know this. So they'll call in a psychologist, and the one thing they do is when they actually do find that somebody is possessed, they will have the psychologist or a medical doctor there with them, so that if the exorcism goes on for hours, so that the medical doctor can kind of say, hey, this is going on too long, and the doctor can actually say, this isn't safe for the priest or safe for the person possessed. So possessions can be, the exorcism can take place, and actually the person can be cleared and liberated within that day, or it can take years. It's kind of like there's no middle ground here. It just depends on what kind of possession that it is. So as I was stating, others can be over within a few hours, and there are severe cases where the exorcism can last for years. And those are the ones that are kind of like in the movie The Exorcist, something severe like that. From what they say, and this is very interesting, is that more women come in for exorcisms than men, but it's equal amongst men and women who are afflicted with this. But the difference is that men, on the other hand, are more inclined to dismiss an exorcism and not show up for the appointments. And so the priest believes, or it is believed, that that's part of what the demon does. The demon makes sure that the person doesn't show up. The demon will give every excuse under the sun as to why this person can't be there, convince that person, and then they don't show up. But men are more inclined not to show up than women. They call exorcisms blessings, and the evil one is called a negative. And all prayers are said in Latin for clarification, so that the exact words are used and not misunderstood or taken wrong. It's really odd because, according to what I read, the demons like good language. They want it precise. They want it exactly the way it needs to be. They don't want something stated or said that I guess they can take out of context, or maybe it's just something crazy that they do. I have no idea, but I find that very interesting that they do it in Latin, and that's the reason why. Latin is an exact language, or a dialect or whatever it is. So that's why they say it in Latin, and I like Latin. I don't. I went to Catholic high school, and I used to hear the priests talk in Latin, and I always liked it. I find it very calming in a way. I always wish I would have learned it, but I didn't. So, anyways, there's 3 types of attacks. 1 is the oppressive, 2 is the obsession, and 3 is the possession. So with the oppressive, that includes negative thoughts and that are uncontrollable. And it could also include hearing voices. And this brought out an interesting kind of little quandary here, because I had done a video on hearing voices with aliens, and I was kind of focused in on that and not so much on this. And I think that the difference between the two in knowing is that when you hear voices like this, they're just telling you you're despicable, you're not worthy, you don't like people, people are horrible. It's more focused on culture and society and the emotional aspect of the human, because the demons get a kick out of bringing torture and horrible feelings to humans. They like to torture people. Aliens, on the other hand, have things for us to do. They want to get things done. They have, I think, we're their pet projects in some ways. So I think that the agenda of each group is different, and you would sense and know the difference between the two. The obsession, a person is still conscious while the attack takes place, and the attacks don't happen all the time, but periodically. So this is one of those type of exorcisms that could take a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or a couple of years, because the demon doesn't always show itself. And that's one thing that was very interesting that I read, is that they stay hidden. They don't like to show themselves right off the bat. So it may take a couple exorcisms or a couple appointments to come in before they show their ugly heads, or they actually do something, or they contort the body or something like that. And then there's the possession. And the possession is when the person is in a trance. And this actually, what was interesting is Father Amorthwho stated that their eyes go white. There's no pupil, so the pupil is completely gone. So you just see the whites of the eye. And the person has no memory of anything that took place or happened. So it's considered, when this happens, that it's a diabolical possession. And these are the ones that are severe, and these are the ones that actually can take a long time. So the 5 areas that are affected when there is an actual possession is the health of the person, business, their jobs, affections, their family relationships, the enjoyment of life, where they just feel despondent and despair, and the desire of death, where they actually want to commit suicide. The most commonly affected areas are the head and the stomach. So I'm not saying that if you have a headache or stomach problem that's something to do with a demon. I'm just stating that what they found is that these are problems that don't seem to get resolved. That the person will go into see the doctor, and the doctors will check everything, and there's nothing that they can find to help the person. They're just saying, look, there's nothing wrong with you. And so that's the biggest problem for these people, is that they look to the medical field first before they actually come to the priest. And also including in this can be bruising or certain growths that happen on the inside. It can be tumors or whatever on outside of the skin, and stab wounds. So all of a sudden a person will just, for no reason, and then right in front of people, get a stab wound. So it just depends on what kind of demon is actually possessing this person. And also Father Amorthwho said that he does not feel that locations are affected by exorcisms, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because you're going to find on the latter part of this that they do house exorcisms. So I think that if a person is possessed, that the demons are going to kind of be hanging in the location where they're at. So I take that for what it's worth. I think there are locations that have these entities in there, these beings in there. I like, for instance, the house where the young boy, who the actual story was based on a young boy in the movie The Exorcist. That house still to this day has a very oppressive energy to it. So I think that could, maybe it could just be the energy, everybody's attention on that house is maybe negative, and it affected the house. I don't know. But anyways, I don't know if I totally agree with that. I think that it can. So here are, next we have demons' behavior. These are the 4 steps that they have found that demons do. The first one is they'll show themselves, actually. It'll be prior to discovery. And so prior to discovery, they don't want anybody knowing that they're there. So they try to hide. During the exorcism, they won't always speak. And this is the one thing that I didn't know. Demons don't like to speak. They don't like to talk. That's just one thing they don't want to do. They don't want to talk. Because if they do talk, then what happens is that they get found out. At the beginning of the liberation of the person who they're trying to free them from the demon, it'll show itself even more because it's losing the battle for the person. And then even after liberation, the person has to be steadfast and be aware of what's happened, and try to kind of live life according to their lessons that they've learned. Now, Father thinks that what they should do is obviously go to church and go to confession and live a good life, and hey, there's nothing wrong with any of that. I think we should all live good lives, and if you want to go to church, because I love church. I love going into a variety of churches. I like to hear Mass. I don't have any problem with any of that. I think it's wonderful. So if you're inclined to do all of this, that's great. The monastery for Michael and I is so peaceful and beautiful that we love going there. So that's one thing that we do enjoy. So as I said here, it's important to get the name of the demon because they don't like giving out their names, because to them it's considered a defeat if they give you their name, because most priests know the names of certain demons, and once that's the case, they've totally lost, because once they know the name, they can pull in the archangels, and they can pull in a strong belief system and help that person get past the oppression of this demon. The first name of the chief demon is the most important because they are the ones doing the most damage, and they're leading the other demons to torment the person. This has to do with the fact that there could be more than one demon in a body. And so what they want to do, what the priest wants to do, is actually get the chief demon's name, because the chief demon is usually in an exorcism the last one to go. Most people don't know, but demons are reluctant to speak. They try to hide their presence. And so it's not like in the movies where they say these horrible languages and talk and all this stuff. They don't want to. And these are from priests who've done thousands of exorcisms and some of the worst cases that have been out there. And so they just don't like to talk. The demon can affect the person by isolating them from their family and friends, outside of making them feel humiliated by friends and family. So they'll give a person a perception that isn't really there. And that's what they're really good at. So they start working on them mentally and affecting their feelings. They found that the young are the most afflicted. And that could be just because when people are, after they've grown up and they're going to college and they're trying to make a living and stuff, maybe they, who knows, maybe they're more inclined to have much more experiences and get out there and see the world, and maybe some of the negative aspects of what people do is what they're talking about. Different things that have come out of people during an exorcism while they were vomiting, or materialized right next to them. And I found this very interesting. So the first one is nails. Nails have come out of people, and they have also materialized next to them. Pieces of glass, small wooden dolls, knotted string, rolled wire, cotton threads of different colors, and blood clots. And so they found that nobody was ever hurt when these things came out, but these things came out of people or materialized right next to them. And I know, I just find that crazy. Now, there are some cases where usually when they help people, they find that it takes years, or it actually, the man or the woman, whoever it happens to be, can actually get relief, and they actually can go on and live a good and healthy life. There was one instance where a woman was horrible to her daughter, and so the daughter was hearing voices and wanted to kill herself and do all these kind of things, and And the daughter was the one who went to go see a priest. And she actually started to get better, starting to feel better about life. And the mother was, whenever she would try to talk to her mother about what happened, the mother was very oppressive. And the mother said to her, I'm sick and tired of what you're talking about, you not hearing voices, and you don't want to kill yourself. So if you do want to kill yourself, she opened the window to, I guess they were on a second floor in an apartment. And then she said, just go ahead and kill yourself. And so the daughter went ahead and just jumped out. And so I think that what happens is that there can be more than one person that has a problem with a demonic presence. And so they're saying that they can say that one person is afflicted when it can be also another person in the family that is even afflicted worse. So I think the mom, obviously, as negative as she was probably just as afflicted or worse than her daughter. So I think that that's what these things do. They actually work on the emotions of people, and is constant working on you, working on you, working on you. And I think that what I found by reading this book is that there's different aspects to how these things can come into a person and their lives. Now, Father stated that people who are tarot readers, gypsies, empaths, people who are psychics, different aspects of people who are in the paranormal field can actually cause problems to happen, which I don't necessarily agree. I think that if somebody is charging a ton of money to help other people when they have a natural gift that's given to them, then that's a problem. I do agree with that. I think that you can't charge people for something that's happening to them that is affecting their lives in such a traumatic way, and just constantly keep getting money from them with no results. So I think that's why priests try to come in and take care of the problem, because they'll do it and they don't charge any money for it. So that's what I truly believe, is that if I can help somebody, I'm not going to charge them money for it, because I feel it's important to, if I have the ability, I want to go ahead and help them, especially children. And so I think that you just kind of have to look at this in a critical way, do critical thinking when you're looking at what could possibly be a possession versus somebody who's just stressed. Because I know that in the job that I have, there's a lot of people, we're all really stressed. But at the end of the day, when I come home, I'm responsible for how I react to Michael and my home surroundings. So I think that we just have to get in control of who we are as people and not give into anything. Michael and I were talking this morning before I started up this video that we talked again about Ouija boards and other things that open up the door to this kind of stuff. And I still insist on that. I think that anytime there's an invitation, these things are waiting right there to come on in and just wreak havoc on a family, because it will affect the whole family. And that's the unfortunate thing about this type of situation, and why priests always say that when the families come in and they actually, the person is, they're talking to the person, they talk to everybody to see kind of what's going on. And it can be more than one person. Even a person doesn't even sense or feel that they have a problem, the priest can actually sense and see what's going on, because when they do the sacraments, or they do even a blessing, or they put a cross on someone, they will their instinct is to back away. And that's when the priest knows that there's a problem there, because for demons, the cross, the blessed oil, water, all the sacraments, everything is difficult for them to hear and to experience. So now we're going to get into exercising houses, which that's where I was saying earlier. I think it does affect homes when people are experiencing negative energy. I think it affects the energy of the house, because I think the walls absorb it. So I think if you have stone underneath you, I think a lot of things in a home it's a reflection of the people who live there. It can be absorbed. So here they say to use blessed water, anointed oil, and incense. And Father is saying that these are all part of the house cleanses. Sometimes it can be done in an exorcism of the home. And if it's more intense, it may take many times to completely get rid of the negative energy. So it's suggested that after they do the exorcism, for them to for the people to put blessed salt on their windowsills, and the blessed oil. And so you use your thumb, I guess your right thumb, and you do the sign of the cross. And it says can be anointed with the right thumb on the forehead. Demons don't like incense, so to bless the room with incense while praying is very important. And here I have how to anoint yourself and others. Make the sign of the cross on your body in many places with your right thumb, repeating in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Each time you make the sign of the cross, here's how to begin. Make the sign of the cross on your forehead, the top of your head, the nape of your neck, where your skull meets your neck, the small of your back, and about waistline high, your navel area, and your sternum. And they're saying that what can be affected or what can materialize are insects and snakes. And then the animals, your pets, will be affected too. So they will see and know anything negative immediately. And some of the afflictions that can happen if your home is possessed is, or it sounds weird, possessed, but if you're dealing with negative energy in your home, is insomnia, headaches, stomach aches, and strange behavior of your house pets. What the priests do is they say 10 prayers asking God to protect the place from evil influences. And then the priest blesses each room with blessed incense, invoking the blood of Christ, and then washing his hands. So the one thing that's really important here, if there is an object that, and we're going to be getting into the curses here, the curses part, what the exorcists have found is that if a person is possessed, then if it has to do with a witch or sorcerer or somebody who's negative, that there's usually some kind of object that's been buried or put somewhere close to where the person is. It could be in their yard, it could be somewhere else. And in one instance, this woman, the demons spoke and said exactly where this cursed object was. And so what happened was the priest, two priests went out and they actually went to the exact spot where the place was, where it was buried, and they didn't do things accordingly to the way they should. So they picked it up with their hands and they didn't bless the object first, and they just ended up burning it, actually touching it with their hands, and they didn't wash their hands afterwards. So what the right way of doing it, or the way that, and even this is the way that I learned as a medicine woman, the best way to do it is if there's something that's cursed and you have to get rid of it, you bless it. And because the blessing takes away all the negative stuff that has happened. It takes away the curse, because a blessing and something of light and love will do that. And then you burn it. And as it's burning, you say your prayers, and you do constant prayers until it actually goes out. And then afterwards, you wash your hands. But the best thing to do to wash your hands is in blessed water, or something that, even rubbing your hands in blessed salt. That's another way of doing it as well. So that's the one thing that this one priest didn't do, and he was afflicted with right after that happened, and they actually got the woman where she was no longer possessed, and she actually ended up living a healthy life. One of the priests was afflicted immediately afterwards, and he was very, very sick, and I guess it affected his hands, and so he learned the hard way that when you're dealing with something that has been a hex or a curse, something very, very dark that has been used against someone, to make sure you do it safely. So the curses can occur for different reasons: black mass, rituals, satanic rites, someone invoking evil, the evil eye, or spell and a hex. So if there, like I was stating, if there's an object, bless it before you burn it and pray as you burn it. Do not forget that. I'm not saying for any of you to go do this. I'm just saying that it's important to understand that you don't ever touch something that is dark. In the end of reading this book, I realized that with the medicine men and women that I've studied with, that really what they did is no different than what the priests do, because you have to be in a place to where you're in charge, but you have to also know you have your protection. You have to not only just believe it, but you got to know it in your soul that you're protected, because that's how these things don't grab onto you. Because if you are a fighter and you're willing to fight for yourself and for what's right and for your right to be here and be in this body, then they're not going to, they don't have any chance whatsoever of coming and hurting you, because we have divine resonance here on this planet. That was given to us by God. What I did find very interesting is that now they do believe that God won't strike down the demons because they are his creation. And I found that very interesting that they think that. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know what you guys think about that. Also, an interesting thing here, a little caveat story here, is that different priests had asked questions regarding hell. And one of the, a couple of the demons, one demon in one situation said God didn't create hell, they did. And then in another instance, another priest asked the question about hell, and the demon said he was part of the creating of it. So they don't believe that, they're stating that God didn't create it, they created it, which is very interesting. I never really thought about it that way. So, see what you think about that. Now I'm going to end with a little story of my own. Many years ago, I had actually had a very intense and very scary dream, and it was one of those experiences where you wake up in a panic. And I was actually in a big mall where I was walking down the walkway, and there's really no stores on either side. It was just kind of an empty place. It was like a massive building with no stores or anything in there. And I walked into one room, and there were two, I think it's two women and a guy. I can't. It's been a while. I think it was three. It was three. I think there were two women and a man. And they had cloaks on, but they were demons, and their eyes glowed like a gold color, like a shiny gold. But it wasn't pretty. It wasn't. It sounds pretty, but it wasn't. And I knew instinctively that they were demons. And they said, "We want you back." And I got really pissed off. And I said, "I'm in the light, and I'm." And I actually wanted to fight them, and I wasn't afraid, I wasn't scared, I wasn't anything, but I went, you know what, I'm just going to get out of this, and I'm just going to turn around, and you guys can just go back to hell. And I went and walked down the corridor, and I started running, and every exit that I went to became a brick wall, consistently. Didn't matter where I turned, where I went, what I did, and I just said, okay, Rainbow, you're going to wake up. And I woke up. And I was all out of breath. And when you're in the presence of something that negative, it affects you to your soul core, because it was not pleasant at all. Now, I don't think that I was a demon, obviously, I don't think I was. But I think that maybe at one point I was under their influence in a past life, because I do believe in past lives. And that was a long, long time ago. And since that point, I've come into the light many lifetimes, and I'm happy to fight for the light, and I'm a warrior for the light. So I think they know that, and they haven't come back. But what was really weird is that they looked familiar. I actually knew their names, but I'm one of those people where I'd rather forget and not even think about their names. I don't even care who they are. I just want them to stay away. So in saying that, I think that we are at a point in society where we have to figure out what side we're on. And I'm on the side of light. I'm a light warrior, and I'm willing to fight the fight for truth and for our right to be here on this planet. And that means whoever. So that's probably why I'm very intrigued with this topic, because I was wondering, what is the bottom line there for a possession? And the only thing that I could come up with is just to torture us, is just to inflict pain and suffering on us. So if we can understand that that's what their prime example is, I mean, that's what they want to do. Don't let them. So if we, knowledge is power, so if we can understand what these things are trying to do, maybe we can have a better life. I mean, I'm willing to fight the fight and to not let these things come through. I want a better life for everybody, not just myself. We all have families. I want a great world for future generations. So let's go ahead, and knowledge is power. Understand what this is, and let's make sure that we keep the light flowing for our children and our grandchildren and for generations to come, because I think it's a great fight for the right to be here and be happy. So let's all understand to be happy, to be in light, and to be in love, and to care about each other. It's a little crazy today, so let's just make sure that we can do this and stand together. If you have any comments about what I talked about today, please feel free to comment in. I love the comments. You can email me at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. Michael and I enjoy reading the different comments that you guys leave in. If you have something you want to share, a story you want to share, please do. If you have questions, whatever, that's great. We really appreciate you guys watching the channel. It's, we've been around over a year, and it's growing, and we're getting there. So share us with your friends and your family, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys coming and watching today. So you guys take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.